just like kind of reminiscing on the time that I was working and doing school. It definitely was a lot. It definitely was a lot. And like tutoring helped a lot. Just being able to like get all my work done. So I didn't have to stress, my mom didn't have to stress, and my teachers didn't have to, yell at me every time I came back to school.
Mhm. Were you the cool kid in school because you were an actor, or did your friends at school were like, "Oh, that's whatever. You're still you. You're just Colin."
Yeah, honestly, within elementary school, it was kind of like I was just the nerdy kid at all times. So like I would like, you know what I mean? Like I guess the cool kids would be the ones that played sports, that played basketball, played football and soccer during recess and all that stuff. And like with me, like I was always like involved in dance, and I did all the like musicals at school, and I did all the performance based aspects and components of elementary school. Like that was my jam. And so like I always loved doing that kind of stuff, but when it came to like sports and doing all that, like I can't shoot hoops for my life, like at all.
Hmm.
I could play soccer a little, but honestly, like it was more so like I was always like focused on dancing, and that was my thing. But then in high school it was like this weird like in between, because it was at the time where I was working a lot more, and a lot of the shows that I have done, people were recognizing me from them. They're like, oh my gosh, like, and like they're asking me about stuff. And so like people always knew me as the kid that worked, like the acting guy, and like this, I mean, the dancer and stuff like that. But it was also a matter of like me not going to school and being at school sometimes, just because of little things like if I had like family channel stuff to do. Like I did like this like bullying tour where we did like anti-bullying. It's called Stand Up Tour. And so I did that for a bit, and like I would always just be leaving school. And so I never really like, also after school was just like a write-off for me, because I was training 24/7. I was dancing. I was doing everything I possibly could. And so I never hung around anybody like that. And so it was always this weird balance between like feeling like I didn't really know anybody, but like everybody like knew who I was. So it was this like kind of this weird like in floating in between like having friends and just like not knowing anyone at all. And it was more so like I had a lot of acquaintances in high school and I knew a lot of people,
Mm.
but it's also a matter of like never finding like my like circle of people that I could trust, so like that I could like hang out with like that. Until
Mm.
maybe like grade 11, grade 12, where I had like my very condensed like dance group of friends, which are, my best friends throughout the entire last 2 years of school. But like, yeah, like high school was
Yeah.
definitely a different experience, especially because I went to high school in Mississauga, and Mississauga has like a predominantly like, like a very big Asian Asian community down here. And I never like hung out with any Asians at my school, just because it was always like kind of
Mm.
this weird thing of this cultural thing, right? Where it was like I was definitely, I guess, like I grew up within the Western culture and like the Western understanding of life. And so, all my references in terms of like everything I grew up on, all my influences have all been from, here. And so going to high school and meeting some people there, like it was always like that thing. It was like I felt like too Asian for the white kids and like too white for the Asian
Mm.
kids. So it was always like no one actually like, it didn't feel like anybody understood how to like deal with me properly. And so like people would kind of just be like, oh, like thing, and then I would more times find myself like being left out of things, or like feeling like I actually didn't have people that cared about whether I was there or not. So it
Interesting.
was a really different experience, and I'm sure like a lot of people, like a lot of Asian Canadians and Asian Americans, can like feel that same like that same experience and understand that same experience, just because I feel like it's a fairly common thing to happen, where
Yeah.
it's like, we have kind of, I guess, for lack of better terms, have had to assimilate into a certain understanding and influence, and then that we could never kind of fully understand that aspect. And
Hmm.
one of the books I'm reading now, which I've owned for a while, but I have never like really like dug into, was Fresh Off the Boat by Eddie Wong. So Eddie Wong's memoir.
Mm.
And I've been reading, I'm like in like, 8 chapters in, and it's like the exact same experiences throughout high school. Felt like the exact same things um
Wow.
I've
Yeah.
experienced. So it definitely was like, whoa, like kind of eye-opening to be like, yeah, no, this is definitely a very like Asian Canadian, Asian American experience that you don't really get to hear, especially within, you know, Western media. It's always like, I think now the representation is growing so vastly and so hugely and like so rapidly, which I love. And I think that it's something that I want to like fuel my music with, and like and bring that
Mhm.
aspect of representation through music. But you know, it's definitely like, um, you never really got to see what it was like to be an Asian American or Asian Canadian on TV or in a movie. It was always like, you know,
Yeah.
very, very like one-dimensional characters in my opinion. And like I like obviously growing up, especially growing up, like the only people that I saw were Asian on TV were like cartoon characters and like Goku and Ash Ketchum, right? So
Yeah.
it's definitely like a really
Hence your look right now. It's very with the trucker hat and the hair on the
yeah.
side. That's very Ash.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly.